In this tutorial, we will create an animation using keyframes. In After Effects, when you record a keyframe, you are recording the specific value of a parameter at a specific point in time. To better understand how to set keyframes, let's get started with our project. If you look at the top of the timeline, you will notice I have two Illustrator CC layers. If I turn the visibility of layer 1 off, you will notice that's my text layer. And then if I do the same for layer 2, that's the layer that contains my graphic. These are the only two layers we're going to be animating. Let's get started by fading in the text. So I will select layer 1 in order to control the opacity. I need to open the opacity settings. The keyboard shortcut for that is T for opacity. Since I want this to fade up from 0, I'm going to change the opacity parameter to a setting of 0%. And then I will set my first keyframe by clicking on the stopwatch. To the left of the parameter. Notice the second I do that, I will get a keyframe that appears in the timeline, directly under the current time indicator. Since it was at frame 0, now in order to create animation, I need to have at least 2 keyframes in 2 different places in the timeline. Let's move our current time indicator down the timeline to about 1 second. To be a little more precise, I'm just go to the upper left corner timeline and type in 100. Now I'm at 1 second in the timeline. To set our second keyframe, since we have moved the current time indicator, all we need is to go down to our opacity setting. I will click and scrub to the right until it gets to the value of 100%. And notice another keyframe was automatically added directly under the current time indicator. Once you have multiple keyframes in the timeline, you can use these arrows on the left side of the interface to navigate up and down the timeline, back and forth between the keyframes. When you are positioned directly on a keyframe, you see a blue diamond here in between these navigational arrows. If I move my current time indicator off of there, now I don't see that blue diamond. Let's move our current time indicator back to frame 0. And to animate the logo graphic, I will select layer 2. And this one, I will just adjust the position. So press P to open the position. In order to which you set keyframes doesn't matter. And since your logo graphics is already perfectly placed, let's see the keyframe for that placement first. So I'm going to move the second keyframe using my navigational arrow from the keyframes. I set on the layer above, and now we can set our position keyframe. By clicking the stopwatch to the left of the word position, with the keyframe now recorded, we can move our current time indicator back to frame 0 using those same navigational arrow as before. And then let's scrub on the Y parameter to reposition the object of the bottom of the screen. As you are scrubbing, if you hold down Shift, the object will move 10 times as fast. Make sure you slide it until it disappears off the bottom of the composition panel. Then you will notice a line. The line is called animation path, and the dots show me exactly where the object's going to be on each individual frame. The large dot here allows me to go ahead, click and drag on a handle. If I want the animation to move in a different direction, since I don't want a curve in the animation path, I'll press Ctrl Z on Windows or Command Z on the Mac to undo that last change. Now we can preview our animation by pressing the space bar on our keyboard. This is close, but not quite. I'm going to press the space bar to stop playback. I have two issues. The first issue is the fact that both of these elements are animating at the exact same time. So let's have the text fade in after the logo gets in place. To do that, all we need to do is slide layer 1 further down the timeline. So click in the right purple area and drag layer 1 towards the right. If you hold Shift as you drag, notice it will snap to other keyframe in the timeline. If we preview this animation one more time, you'll notice the only other issue I'm seeing is the fact that the slide is rather robotic. And that's because it's moving at a constant velocity and then it just stops. This is called linear motion. And in order to smooth this out, I need to add a thing called ease. So quickly add ease to multiple keyframes. All you have to do is just click in the parameter in the timeline. Then I will click on the word position. And notice now both of the position keyframes are highlighted blue. I can go up to the animation menu and go to Keyframe Assistant and choose Easy Ease. And that will automatically apply ease to both keyframes. So if we move our current time indicator back to the beginning of the timeline and press the space bar, notice now I get a nice smooth motion to the slide of my animation.